So as far as this particular student record app, we have completed the UI design, and every href or anchor URL is having the destination to testing for particular thing. Like we'd like to do a small test. That's why for testing purpose, we have the destination directly pointed. Since this example doesn't even verify anything, but now time to verify and do and give a proper access to the next page. And of course, this one having a submit button and everything. I prefer to keep this as a drop down. Let me add a drop down. Just replace this one with a drop down instead of having what I call just input text. I think drop down is the only one we are missing so far. There in the add edit student. Yes. A drop down is we often call that as a select option. Your what you call HTML tag looks like semantic. It's giving you a meaningful name. A select tag wrapped with more than one number of options, so I really don't know. I'm pretty obsessed with physics. Seems to be. So it just becomes a select option. Of course, let's give an ID. A select is having two parts. The value attribute can also be defined if you have some other thing internally to maintain an identifier for this particular text to appear. Maybe one means physics. If you really have something different, I would recommend defining a value. Otherwise, in the value itself, you can define the same. We'll arrive at it once we integrate or index DB. We will decide whether keeping the same name or value different. We will decide about that. And hitting refresh in the main page is not. In any page is not recommended. Better go to the login screen and come to this one. You see that drop down is nicely styled, and of course I do have option to select. It looks pretty nice. Gives us, and that if you run on the mobile device, it will be even good. So the particular subject the user could select from the drop down. I think something missing. I think label is missing. Right. And we have everything, so it's all inline also works fine. Let me do a small conditional statement, then I'll stop and maybe I'll leave you guys for a break. In the index page, I'm going to maintain a couple of objects. Of course, in this example, I'm going to use almost all the three persistent engine which we have discussed so far. Session storage, local storage, index DB. All the three I'm going to put it in this application, so that maybe you can use it for revision as well. Script log could be anywhere, but never mind. Still same excuse. Since it's a small app, you can keep it on the top. First part is to detect change events. Page before change. Am I right? Should be no typos. The function has two arguments when you register the page before change event. One being the event which is performed, another one it is going to give you a data. Additional payloads are coming from the page, whatever if it is required to be maintained. So I'm going to check. There will be a two-page array object will be available. If at all ID exists, we are going to check or detect its changes. Or maybe what are all the pages? Login. I remember the name of the page, ID of the page I have given in this way. So like that, we can detect what is the page change of which page is being loaded in this way. So the main page I've given ID as main page. Remember, this is a register event kind of thing. Means as soon as DOM is ready, document is ready, it is going to keep listening on what all the page is being loaded. And whenever page change is happening, it gives you a few microseconds before ahead of time changing that the page change is about to happen. And just before changing the page, do you have any other data to be mapped? That's what this is the block is going to serve. So it has two arguments, gives you a function callback with the two arguments, one being the event which is being performed on it and another any other additional data being given. I have kept it and I'm detecting what are all the pages loaded. Any other pages if loaded, probably I'll extend the else if block further if at all required. And if you notice, if you really hard to find what kind of data it is, I would recommend instead you can verify console log cd, in this case the argument whatever it is coming, read the object. In that you will surely find an object called toPage, and in that there will be an ID. If at all ID is detected, means the page change happening because of some other action performed on that. This page before change will be called irrespective of the anchor point is called, otherwise you programmatically do a page change. Whatever the reason, this block is going to be called. That's why I said it's a register event. The moment document is ready, you keep verifying what all the pages being changed, and you're just having a control over it so that any other data pass you could perform. Okay, now the condition. I'm going to keep a session storage. I'll say on change is not good. Maybe one more block. The document ready, I'm going to use a session storage. This object I am going to introduce is login. It is my custom object, and I'm just keeping the default value. No. Yes, no, something we will keep it. Means the very first time the page is loaded, no login. If at all any login is there, destroy all the credential, whatever it is. Keep the session storage with the attribute defined is login set to no. The very first time the page is loaded. Or any time when the login screen is shown, make sure to kill the session. Kill session or killing session, it's nothing but a flag is set with some value. Set to no. Okay. The session would be set only if the user set the specific username and password entered in the local storage. So far we haven't added the local storage. We have to perform the registration, then only we can set the username password to something. For this example, I think we can perform that as well. In the registration screen, the username password which I am going to enter, there is a submit button, I hope. Where it is? Here it is. So I'm going to write a function. I prefer to write everything in the index.html. All JavaScript function I'm going to write in this particular document alone. Later I'll remove it and make the separate JavaScript file, then I'll put it, because we have to maintain some sort of modularity so that we can keep the files organized. So in this case, let me write a function. Okay, here the ID what we have kept should not be any duplicates. I'll make this as a reg, because for registration purpose we are using them. Same ID will be having a difficulty to identify. The rest of the data I'm not going to save to to avoid we'll save some time. Maybe tomorrow we'll add it. The username password is done, and I'm going to go back, or maybe I'm going to save into the local storage. I've done it directly anyway. Okay, so this function I'm going to call. If we really waste a object, we really don't want to waste much of the object. Better keep it, the code neat and tidy. So I'm just calling the local storage, and in fact, for a professional application, this part should have been encrypted. Uh, okay, this is a simple app. We are not doing any encryption over here. But in a typical scenario, if you notice, most of the apps would not keep the information as directly as we have done. So when the user registers, the same username password should be put into the login screen so that the further login happens, and the session value will be set to S. But before that, let us complete the registration. Let me call the function when the user press on href. Still we are not done yet. As soon as the user registers successfully, and of course going to call this function, we need to dismiss the page and go back to the login page. But this does nothing. But well, first let me verify at least the values are being propagated. If not, we'll come back. I'm going to register. Same thing I'm just going to put. I'm going to click submit. Nothing happens because the page doesn't dismiss. But at least we will verify the local storage has some entry over here. So what is the resource? Local storage. Yes, it just added 2 entries. The other one for some other example, so not to get confused with that. So fine. At least we need to do some work to take the user back to the main screen, or sorry, login screen. programmatically handling the event. This also comes. So mobile, this is programmatic data relation. Data rel back what I did. Instead, I can do this way. It will take the user back to the main screen. So $mobile tells it is a JQuery mobile function, and you're calling the function called back. Let me try. Now entering other detail, just came back. In my understanding, by this time, the data saved in the local storage, and now I need to enter the same one to log in. Of course, it's not actually working. If I enter a wrong credential also, it will work now. We have to validate and verify whether the username login is entered correctly or not. Okay, let's proceed. First, check the anchor URL directly takes the user to the page, like login main.html. This is not the expected behavior. In fact, I need to validate before getting into that particular page. So first thing, instead I need to call the JavaScript function, or at this point I really don't see a usage of anchor URL. Better be a button. Button have an on-click event, I can directly point it out instead of having. Literally, I really don't see any change. So just a button. Let me write a okay. There is one more other fix also. That also helpful. I'm just going to go back. Okay, the anchor URL job is to handle the page change, but at least in this example we already have a page before change event. Mean this block is called just before the page change happens. Mean it is still before, it is not after. So just before the main page loaded, I may have a hook to prevent the page propagation. That also possible. Assuming now I am into uname text. Okay, let me check. Remember, I am in at this point before the main page is loaded. I will be still into index.html, so I can access those DOMs without any issue. The triple equal, make sure the type also matches with the same. Boolean mean exact boolean you need to supply. If it is string mean exact string you need to supply. Type also it will match, and of course JavaScript recommend to use this one instead of the conventional double equal. In fact, your NetBeans also will give you a warning. Sorry. Was that new pass? I remember. If the entered username and password matches with this, we will allow the page to go on. Otherwise, we will stop. You already have event, and event prevent default will stop the propagation immediately. Mean the page before change, it is about to get the page changed, it will stop the page change itself. It will halt the page change and you will stay in the same page itself. So the main page is about to load, but the username password enter seems to be wrong, and we are not going to allow the user to go back. Go to the main page. This is also one of a way to hook into it. Let me see what. If you see that I didn't enter anything, this guy is not going at all. When I enter the right username password, it went inside. Because I am not doing any prevention here, because if the username password matches, to allow it. If something other than that is there, it will stop the bubble. We call the bubble propagation usually. No, it just goes one by one, one by one. So the page before change, if you could imagine from you're into one page and you're going to go to the another page, in between there is a time gap available. That particular time is called page before change. That's the reason page before change. If it is page after change, means this particular block will be called only after the second page is displayed. But if this particular block is quite clever, it gives me an access so that that particular page before to be displayed, it is giving me an option to either prevent it or handle the event. So still I maintain the anchor point, same destination, but using this particular way, I can prevent the page load. So this example checks, it only allows when the username password which is matching with the data what you enter in the registration, and then only it will allow. Otherwise, so probably the best approach would be sort of wasting else block. This would be fine, right? Instead of having a blank if block. I said if the username and password does not match with the local storage value, prevent. Otherwise, it will progress. We have to verify it. Doesn't work. Enter right username password. Does work. So the login part is done. Let me also keep a else block if at all I may need to put any dialogues. Sorry, your username password is wrong. Something if you could display. Let me try that. You can create, see now I am inside a page called login. Inside the page there is already header, footer and content area. Now I am going to add one more div tag just after the footer is over. Going to define its data role to pop up, and define an IP ID because you may have more than one pop-up, and of course we are going to handle the events through program or JavaScript. ID is mandatory. Say login wrong pop-up because it's going to display something specific to login wrong, right or wrong. A pop-up can be customized in various ways. For example, a div having a data role main. I did not put header footer. The pop-up can also have a header footer, small header alert, or a plain data role directly starts and saying that a paragraph you can put, or href, whatever. I'm sorry, h1, h2, anything you can put. Sorry, username or password wrong. Okay. This way you can do it. Probably, let me try that. Close button would be appropriate if you put it that the user can cancel and do something else. But before that, we have to verify whether the pop-up appears or not. To make a difference, let me put a different theme. Black pop-up. Let's see how it looks like. What is that? What's the name of the game? Login. It is called pop up give open, programmatically triggering the pop-up. These are all the additional functions added by JQuery to easily create a pop-up. First, define the selector and pop-up open. Let me try, but I'm still not confident at all. Something really, really bad. All right, right. Sorry. Very good, great. And else we are, of course, that's the purpose we modify the behavior, right? So we are preventing and just putting a pop-up instead. Really great. So now it just put the pop-up when you enter the wrong username and password. It can be dismissed by clicking anywhere outside of, yeah, anywhere in the DOM. You can simply click and get dismissed. But you can still customize that. For example, sometime a pop-up should not be dismissed. Data dismissible set to the pop-up. You really don't want to dismiss it. If the user has to click OK or cancel in the pop-up, then only it will get dismissed. That also you can make it force it. By default, it is data dismissible true because that's the reason it went away as soon as I click somewhere. But now it won't go. I'm just tapping anyway. See the behind DOM, the whatever DOM it is on the overlay it is putting, all disabled. Can't click anything. It has to be dismissed programmatically, then only that particular access will be given. So it may be your requirement, certain thing will, the pop-up will come, in the pop-up there will be a form, the user has to enter properly, then only you will allow somewhere to go. You can set the data dismissible set to false. By default it is true, but I am also going to keep it true to make that happen. So when the username password is wrong, it's going to alert you, then the user has to enter the correct username and password. And then it proceeds. If I could do it, let me slightly do a little design to this pop-up. I just remove the data theme. Let me try to add a header. Header data theme I'm going to give black. Stop. I've added a header with a contrast color. You see that is a small heading, some sort of coloring can be given. Like that you can customize it however way you want. But it's something like, UI content, data theme. I don't think it is needed at all, but let me try. Oh, it's not fine. That you can somehow customize it, or if you want a close button directly shown on the pop-up itself. That's slightly tricky, but let me try. Of course, anchor point. Destination I'm not sure, but I'm going to give a data rel to set back to dismiss. Sorry, I hope I removed it, but let me put it back. So a close button plus stop. This may look pretty good. You see that? A small icon plus the stop, and it looks slightly better. I think it's back instead of back. I need to verify the document. The close, cross, multiply, delete. Yeah, delete. It's pretty perfect. So we can add this way also to dismiss it. So in this case, if I set the data dismissible to false, the pop-up can be dismissed only when you click on this cross, otherwise it won't be dismissed. So only clicking this one will force the pop-up to go off, otherwise nothing. It's really impossible to dismiss the pop-up. So the pop-up is nothing but the same one, the div, but having a data role set to pop-up, and it is also can accommodate header, main content, and footer according to your requirement, provided only condition you don't put a fixed data position, because if you put the fixed data position, that heading will come on the top, which is not something we expect on the pop-up. So in this case, we have slightly customized and put a cross, and to dismiss the pop-up, the user has to click on, and then you can access them. Furthermore, designing is also possible, which is using CSS. Let me try that if I can, otherwise let me comment it. Okay, UI button, UI corner all, no idea, UI. There is an option to define the icon directly, icon, cdd, delete. Left. Let me try that. Slightly longer. I think that the anchor appears here itself on the top without that text. Data icon, it's not taking. Let me put data icon. I don't know why it is not taking the icon, but at least. Which one? Data theme B is to give a contrast color. That's nothing to do with that, because I'm just removing. No, icon itself will put a background picture, so we really don't need to give a background for that. But if you're wishing, let me try that. Remember, I just removed the header itself. Okay. UI icon, UI button, corner, all. Let me remove this one. That's a corner. Let me refer pop-up. It's easy to refer in the document. We do really have a lot of examples. Yeah, I noticed that. Okay, I'm just going to copy pop-up left. It's pretty long. My God. I think I'm missing something. But these are all the things you need to define in order to create transparent. UI button, corner, all shadow. Shadow is not mandatory. Button A. I don't see that. Okay, no text left. You may notice that cross is added just on the edge itself. So this way also a pop-up can be created. And instead of left, you can specify right. That cross appears over there. It's up to you what kind of design you would like to add for a pop-up. You can either create a small anchor URL with the following class. Make sure that button transparent and overflow on the top of the layout itself. Otherwise, you can create a nice header with a contrast theme. Then put that particular button to dismiss it. It's up to you, whatever design you would like to prefer. So I'm going to keep both. I'll keep it commented for you and have this one. Somehow, some reason I prefer this one. So when a username password goes wrong, the user has to enter the right username password. Then it works. So we have somehow validated, somehow we register the user using the registration data. Remember, if you register with the new data, of course the password username will be changed. So the same screen can also be used to update the username password. Fine. And of course, once we enter the username password, we are going to the main screen. And yeah, the registration data in local storage, whether the user successfully logged in or not, we are keeping it in a session storage. If you notice that, of course, that I have to maintain. If the user enters the wrong username password, keep the session storage, use login set to no for safer side. The user hasn't logged in. If the user successfully logs in, you can keep a session storage set to yes. We just maintain a session storage as well. The moment session goes down, and of course the things will start from the login page and it will move on. So tomorrow I'm going to add this particular screen, and of course, we have to dynamically add the list based on the user whatever enters here, and that is going to have an index DB and a dynamic addition of the list item. Hard-coded list item, we have already seen it. Dynamic addition of list item slightly tricky over here because the JQuery mobile addition, it has its own design, and the event for editing and adding is also going to be added. So that part we will do it tomorrow. At least today, you know how to create a complete project. The UI is done, registration is done. You know how to create pop-up, and you know how to handle the group field set, and a couple of things you know today. So using that, tomorrow session we are going to continue. So after this, I'll put it. You can practice when you get time. Those who want to go to break, you can go.